Hello family! Our movie begins with David Van Owen is relocating to a new shabby house. Jessica Van Owen, his daughter, greets him as he drives in. They eagerly explore the rest of the house. However, when Jessica is looking through the kitchen, David discovers a closet within another closet and discovers $100 on the floor, which they decide to spend on Chinese takeout while dining on a cardboard box. David thanks Jessica for the help and plans for what to do next with the house. Jessica informs her father that she is dating a Harvey store manager named Zach Kennedy. They talk about their lives for a while, and David informs her daughter that he's likely to obtain a promotion shortly. Jessica informs her father that she will be unable to pay her medical costs beginning next month, and he offers to cover them when he starts his new work. They say their goodbyes, and Jessica drives away in her car to return home. She calls her boyfriend Zach and informs him about her father. In her opinion, David's divorce is causing him to act strangely and unnaturally. Alan Palms, David's landscaper, wakes him up the next morning to check on what he'll have to work on. David shows him a few locations that need to be changed and tells him that he'll take care of his own septic system because it's one of the few things he and his father did together back in the day. As soon as Alan has left, David gets a call from his friend Mark, who says he'll be by with some drinks soon. Mark and David take a seat near the pool and unwind. David informs Mark that his toilets are in disarray and that he will need to repair his septic system. Mark asks whether he shouldn't just hire someone to do the job, but David says it's not that expensive or difficult, and it's pretty much the only thing he knows how to do. They discuss David's potential promotion, and after some chit-chat, Mark departs, leaving David to his plumbing while digging with a shovel. David discovers a massive wooden chest. When he opens it, he discovers a mound of banknotes and a corpse dressed in a suit inside. He takes some money from the box, goes inside, highlights some banknotes, and talks to himself in disbelief while washing his face at night. When David awakens, he hears some foreboding noises. After struggling to fall asleep again, he goes downstairs to investigate the disturbance but finds nothing. After sitting in his cubicle the night before, David goes to work the next morning. Richard, a coworker who is overconfident about being promoted to project manager, approaches him. Mr. Wu approaches David after he tells Richard to leave him alone and invites him for a walk. After informing him that his crew did an outstanding job, Mr. Wu takes him to the project manager's office and assures him that this will be his new perspective from now on. This makes David very happy. He then requested to leave the office early to go to the bank to resolve an account problem. An accountant asks David if he needs to deposit a $2 million inheritance in cash. After some babble, the accountant informs David that putting such a huge quantity in cash with little to no documentation will undoubtedly alert the government, and people will begin to scrutinize him. They discuss the situation further. David, who is currently tending to his garden, can't take his mind off his predicament. He can't help himself and takes out the entire contents of the box. The sum is slightly less than $4 million. He puts it in a closet, closes it, and goes to the restroom to shave. During the night, he chats to himself and has hallucinations that his reflection is answering his queries. He hears some strange noises once more. He takes out a baseball bat and searches the premises for intruders. Every room appears to be safe, but when he checks the back door, it is unlocked. After certain that no one is lurking in his garden, he returns inside and drinks some tea while taking a sip. He hears something outside and goes to investigate while standing on his front porch, cup in hand. He is startled by a cat and, relieved, spills the mug on the floor. He returns inside and checks on his money, but it is still there as he walks back to his bed. He notices an elderly, malnourished man dressed in a suit standing in front of his window. He rushes out and searches his garden for anyone. However, David had not buried the box and it was now visible on the surface. He opens the door to check on the corpse within, but it is still dead. He wakes up the next morning to find himself still filthy from the day before. He gets ready, makes some breakfast, and heads to the office. Mr. Wu approaches him and informs him that in order to obtain his promotion, his team must release an update in less time than originally agreed upon. David is concerned that he will not make it but assures Mr. Wu that he will go right to work. Richard makes fun of him with a Nerf gun. He goes out to eat with Mark after work. After a brief conversation, Mark realizes that David is not looking well. He advises him to unwind. David, on the other hand, leaves frustrated. When David returns home, he sees some black tracks on his floor. He double-checks if he left them but later discovers it wasn't him. He checks the money and discovers that everything is still there. Jessica is having a good time with her boyfriend. She gets a call from her father, who tells her to come straight away. When she arrives, he initially wants to tell her about the money and the dead, but then chooses to merely tell her that he has a new job and is nervous about it. Jessica informs him she needs to leave immediately, and they agree to meet on Sunday so he can meet Zach back home. David double-checks the money and then sweeps the footprints off the floor. He gets ready for bed and is startled by his suit hanging from a window. However, when glancing out the window, he notices a man going through his garden, so he pulls a knife and prepares to attack him. David goes outdoors but is unable to locate him. He returns inside and begins stuffing all of his money into a bag to bury it again. He opens the wooden box, places the bag inside, and then nails the whole thing shut. He's still thinking about the previous night the next morning at work, but he's brought back to reality by an unsatisfied Mr. Wu, who checks on David's still unfinished job. David rushes out of the office after meeting with Mr. Wu and returns home. He attempts to open the closet but is stopped by Alan, who tells him that he'll bring some dirt and gravel on Friday at noon. After hanging up the phone, he returns outdoors and opens the wooden box once more. He searches for the corpse's wallet and finds it. David has a nightmare about being attacked by the corpse that night. He calls in sick to work in the morning and leaves to buy some hardware, supplies, and tools at home. He installs numerous lights and cameras throughout his home, all of which are linked to his computer. He goes outside to test the lights before returning inside to try to enter the closet again. He succeeds this time and discovers a staircase leading down to a basement. He descends the steps and looks about, discovering a large number of corpses wrapped in plastic. He dials 911 at first but then hangs up the phone. During the night, the cameras detect a man in David's backyard, setting off all of the alarms. David awakens to see who it is, but he cannot see anyone. A storm produces a power outage, and everything becomes dark. When the power is restored, David notices the man approaching his bedroom door and hammering on it with his head. He looks horrified as the man reveals his face to the camera and reveals himself to be the corpse within the box. The undead body then makes his way down the stairs and out of the home, leaving David to confront him outdoors with a baseball bat. But as soon as he gets outside, David steps on the fragments of the mug he dropped a few days ago, cutting his nude foot. He collapses to the ground, screaming in agony, but then gets up and pursues the man. He opens the wooden box to find the corpse still inside. David begins to yell at the body, ordering it to stop bothering him. He yells towards the heavens in anguish before falling asleep on the ground. He wakes up on top of the corpse the next morning. He immediately stands up and checks his watch, realizing he's late for work. He gets dressed and goes into his car, but as he drives away, he notices the zombie corpse standing up and staring at him. David gets out of his car and chases the corpse inside, but it escapes. It's back to being a wooden box, and it's now unresponsive and lifeless. David screams at the body once more. He returns inside, fetches a chainsaw, and saws the corpse's legs off. However, it is still dead and unresponsive. David then returns to the workplace, still bloodied and stinking. He has an argument with Mr. Wu, who fires him in front of all of his coworkers. Mr. Wu watches, enraged, as David is dragged outside by security. David discards his bloody and filthy clothing and drives back home in his car. He speaks to himself, becoming increasingly unpredictable. When he returns home, naked and drenched, Alan, his landscaper, walks in. He approaches him as he is about to dial 911 in rage. David murders him by hitting him in the head with the hammer. David panics and rushes the corpse into the closet with the others. He cleans himself after bringing Alan's truck to his garage. David has another hallucination while looking in the mirror. Mark dials his number, but he does not answer. David eventually falls asleep during the night. An alarm has woken him up yet again. Through the cameras, he spots another man and goes down the stairs to kill him. He recognizes his pal Mark in his kitchen and brutally murders him with an electric drill. David hides his closest friend's body in the closet after murdering him. He heads back up to his room when he hears his kettle whistle. David returns outside to retrieve his money. He removes the sack from the wooden coffin and places it inside. It goes after he showers in a radical, his belongings, counting his money and staring out the window like the maniac he has become. He pretends to play checkers with the money bag before snapping and throwing the board across the room. Then he falls asleep while watching a movie with his money bag. Is jolted awake by his doorbell. Zach, Jessica's boyfriend, has arrived at the door. David goes out and repeatedly bashes him in the head with a baseball bat while it is still alive. David encases him in a plastic bag. Jessica appears and inquires about Zach. David takes his daughter downstairs to the basement and informs her that Zach is present. Jessica notices all the corpses wrapped in plastic, including Zach, who is still moving in his plastic bag. Then David smacks his daughter on the head, and she goes blank. She awakens in the basement, chained to a pole. David informs her that she has come to grab his money and points a knife at her before inquiring when the others will arrive. Jessica sobs and becomes absolutely terrified. David apologizes and says he knows how to make things right. He then walks out of the basement, leaving her alone. He returns to his room and gets dressed, leaving Jessica and Zach in the basement while he ties his tie in the bathroom. He gives himself a speech in the mirror, then takes his money bag outside and douses it with gasoline. Meanwhile, Jessica tries but fails to grasp the keys to the chain, tying her up with her feet. Zach runs out of oxygen and gives up. David can't bring himself to burn the money, so he lies in the wooden coffin next to them and shuts the lid, strangely and unnaturally leaving everything behind. This is how our movie ends. Leave us a comment on how you found this movie recap. See you in the next movie recap. We hope that you enjoy your time and have a good day.